Hey guys, so why the property market is going the same way that internet marketers are going. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at the internet marketers first. If you look at 10 years ago, very few people were on the internet and were using it for commerce, e-commerce, all this sort of stuff. It was very much the wild west back then. And then what happened was, now we've got this wave of Shopify, Amazon, all these sort of things, internet marketing, firms. You've got the Frank Kerns doing the, funnels, click funnels, and all these sort of guys. And what they're doing is effectively, there's everybody, they lowered the barrier to entry. A lot of these platforms lowered the barriers to entry, and by doing that, everybody jumped on. Now, what it also meant was consumers jumped on, because it's a lot easier to buy online than it is off. And so what's actually happened is we've had this period now where everybody's been making a killing, and you've got guys who, have made huge amounts of money, selling internet marketing courses, Shopify courses, Amazon courses, whatever it is. And realistically, their courses are crap. Their products are average. And even people selling, setting up a Shopify and selling average products, and making huge profits on them. But what's happening now, okay, is a lot of those companies, a lot of those e-commerce shops, a lot of those trainers are now struggling to get, because what's happened is, as the market expands, there's a boom, and we've seen that. But the market is maturing for internet marketers now. And what does that mean? That means the profits aren't there as easily. The savvy, the investors, the purchasers are becoming more savvy. So they're not putting up with crap anymore. They're not buying from rubbish stores. They're not accepting inferior products. A lot of these sort of things. The regulation has caught up. So you've got, regulations around returns policies and things like this, and consumer codes have all caught up. So all this sort of stuff has gone on, and what it means is basically now the profit's not there like it used to be. And so if you have a crappy product, you're going to go bust. And we're seeing this happen, okay? We're seeing that happen, and we'll continue to see that happen, because understand, the buying patterns of individuals have dropped. I mean, I basically very rarely go to a shop and buy stuff. I do all my shopping online, and in fact, half the time, it's easy to do it in Amazon UK. So I buy the stuff in UK, even if I know I'm going to take it back to Singapore or Australia, because Singapore, UK, Amazon is so much better, all right? Or so much quicker and better, and that more variety. But bottom line is, with this, is the market is maturing. I used to run a mobile phone company. My first job when I got to the UK was I was general manager of a mobile phone company. And we got to the point, I jumped on, and I had about the 6 months there, I suppose, before I got back into property. And during that 6 months, we changed from where the mobile networks were paying huge commissions to get people onto their networks because they're trying to get critical mass, to where the decision was clearly taken that they were actually critical mass, and the commissions dropped down to 10% of what they were. And so as a business, we went through a period where it was like we had to seriously reconsider how we went about things. And things like rebates weren't as big, and commissions weren't as big, and we went more to what was called an ARPU model, average revenue per unit. Sold. So, how much money the networks are making from that phone that we sold, or that contract that we sold. And that's what happens with all. This happens in every industry, yeah? It starts off, it's a novelty. You got your early adopters, and then as the masses come in, it's the wild west. There's no regulation, there's no, communication, information, pricing. So you make huge amounts of money if you're first to market. One of my mates in the Amazon space has done extremely well. Now, make no mistake, he's done extremely well because he was maybe not first to market, but he was one of the first to market. But he also added the second element, which is the solution that I'm going to talk about in a sec, which is that he had a fantastic product, and he worked on the distinctions, a unique selling proposition, and he worked on the product offering, and not just the product, but the entire thing. So, but the reality is that's what's been happening in internet marketing. Let's have a look at the property market. So the property market is, by its nature, a massively mature market. It's been around for hundreds of years. since land ownership was allowed. Okay, now bottom line is I think that was a Magna Carta that pulled that, and allowed ownership of land. Bottom line is that the market has been pretty much the same, hasn't matured, but what we've seen recently is all of a sudden with technology, a massive wave of new disruptive technology coming in and massively changed the market. And what's happened? It's the wild, wild west. So some people are making a killing. Yeah? Why? Because they're first to market. And what we're finding is there's so many different versions of different pieces of software. And some of them, when I look at them, I sit there and go, that's a piece of crap. And yet they're doing really well. They're selling lots. They're talking about success. But I think what will happen is as that technology and the market around that matures, we're going to start to see a lot of these sort of things fall by the wayside. A lot of platforms being launched. If you look at it, how many platforms there are in the UK, like Rightmove and Zoopla, but there's only 3 or 4, of the ones that have most of the thing. And that's what happens in any mature market. So, we had the online platforms back, in the sort of early 2000s, 10s, that sort of stuff, 14s, 15s. And now they're sort of mature. If you've got a new platform, you're trying to launch it, it's going to be really hard to, go after Rightmove and take some of their market share unless you come up with something totally unique and disrupt their market. But then the likelihood is they're big enough that if you disrupt their market, they're going to come in and buy you rather than let you grow big enough to compete with them. And that's one of the strategies, for a software company, or that is you build it up for them to buy you, not actually that you ever really want to run that business. You build it up to sell it. So let's have a look. Property market. So what can you do and how does this affect you? Well, the bottom line is with all of this, the internet marketing has matured and now we're starting to see people fall off. Also, the property market is the same. So you're going to have companies that are there today, gone tomorrow, and whether that be in the agency route, whether that be in the technology route, we're seeing a lot of high streets go under right now. We're seeing a lot of agencies that just aren't coping with things like tenant fee bans and increases in regulations and all this sort of stuff. And unfortunately, you got to try and pick the best of the bunch. Yeah, and the way you do that is by picking the ones who have the best product offering, unique selling propositions that have all that really going on. And if you go with those guys and work with those guys, they're going to be the guys that will see it through. If you're just going with someone who looks like everyone else, well, the reality is they're the ones that are probably going to go bust over the near future, because the market is going to be more of a market for the big companies. The small little boutique, yes, if they're offering a really good product and then service, fine, they may survive. But the reality is by far the majority of them that offer an average product, at an average price, and they're discounting and they're doing all this sort of stuff. They're the ones that are going to be going, and they're the ones you probably don't want to be working with. All right, guys. So internet marketing versus the property market. There's a lot of similar things in where the market is and where it is going right now. So, guys, any questions, comments, chuck them down below. Otherwise, have a great day. Live with passion.